Thank you for that introduction, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to 3 Teaching Hacks. As was indicated, my name is Gerard Flynn. I'm the Senior Director of IT Administration and Client Services at Pepperdine University in the IT Division, and I'm co-presenting today my good friend and colleague, Regan, who's the Director of Client Services in IT. Now, Alan and I teach a BA 212 at Cedar College. It's called Business Computing Applications. Students study business analysis using spreadsheets to analyze data and so forth. It's a required class for business majors. And I began teaching an earlier incarnation of this class in 1999. And I taught it for many, many years. And then I got out of the classroom for a while. And I just got back into it maybe 2+ years ago. And I found that things had changed. Students had changed. And so what we want to do is share with you 3 hacks that we found effective in interacting with modern students, and as a result, it boosted our evaluations. So, if you're like me, you want to teach well and get good evaluations, but life has changed since I went to college. Back then, I attended class, and the professor gave a syllabus, graded my papers, I accepted my grade, and I moved on. I, as a student, was content with that. But when I started reteaching this class, I'd get all kinds of inquiries like, did you get my email? Yes. Why didn't you respond? You sent it like 2 hours ago. I'm doing other things. When is that homework due again? I thought we covered that in the syllabus and in the first 3 sessions. Yeah, can I visit your office? And this takes 5 emails to determine the date and time. This is my favorite, actually my least favorite. Do I need to buy the book? Do I need to even have the book? And so I was becoming overwhelmed, and if you're like me, modern professors are overwhelmed in this environment. Now, at the same time, modern students have expectations. Did you know that a modern student touches a cell phone 2,000 times a day? It's actually more than that. 73% of them prefer text-based communication, actually talking to someone. 2/3 of them, sleep with their cell phone and take them to the restroom. Right? It's the truth is the horse is out of the barn, and people are students have this expectation, and it affects their academic expectations. They have apps on their phones that are really easy to use. You probably have them. For my bank, I take a picture of my check and I send it, and it's easy. They get instant feedback. They post something on Facebook and they get a thumbs up, or on Twitter it gets retweeted, Instagram, etc. And so they want that instant feedback from faculty. They want to be able to interact with your class as easily as they interact with an app on their phone. And now we may have difficulty with this, but they have legitimate complaints. And we receive this via different survey mechanisms. But out of the mouth of babes, students have said, hey, I want my professors using more technology. I want more of my professors to do so. Did you know that half the classes at Pepperdine are not published in Sakai, in courses? So students aren't even getting their syllabus that way. And put yourself in their shoes, what would it be like in this class? Someone uses that course site very intensively. This one I get a paper syllabus, this one emails me, this one has a personal website. It's not as easy as their daily lives. And we get all kinds of comments. I like learning from videos or different learning styles. I go to Google and YouTube and the Khan Academy and so forth. I don't know about you, but they're always bugging me about what I call grade grubbing. How many points do I have? What are my points? Where do I stand? They want that constant feedback. Now, consequently, there's a gulf that exists between your historical teaching methods, or mine that I found, and the expectations of modern students. And what's going to happen is you'll either continue to frustrate your students and possibly get negative evaluations, or you'll remain overwhelmed trying to interact with them, answering emails at 2 o'clock in the morning, responding to every inquiry and grade grubbing inquiry. But in any case, those student expectations will remain for ease of use, as in their daily lives, and getting instant feedback and instant information. So given the disparity between how they interact with their regular lives and how they interact with you, that will remain. So what do? Well, in order to meet students where they are, and face that reality, and consequently receive good evaluations, we propose 3 teaching hacks to meet students where they are, make the class experience significantly easier, give them the information text-based that they want, meanwhile decreasing your stress load. And what we found is that we've received positive evaluations. They've commented on the things that we've done. And so here is Alan Regan. I gave you the introduction to our presentation. Alan Regan is going to share with you hack 1.
So Jerry mentioned that students like apps. They like to have things interactive. They want to make things as easy and simple as possible. Sometimes that is counter to the role of educators. Yes, things need to be easy, but we also need to have challenge in that space and have people learn. But related to structure and setup and getting your message across, hack number 1 is all about design, planning and structuring your materials in such a way to be accessible to your students. So, let's take a look at design. So we've redesigned this class, and I don't know if it gets that much simpler than there are only 2 buttons. There's classwork and gradebook, and that's it. That's all they see. Okay? So I'll start here now with gradebook. Jerry mentioned that students are always wanting to know how they're doing and what they're doing. It does involve you. You do have to actually grade things and then provide feedback. But if you structure things in such a way and use the tools that are available, you can lay out exactly like this is, if you do all of this work, this is like what you need to do to get whatever your desired grade is, your outcomes are. And then as you provide information and give them also, like, by the way, to improve, why don't you consider this, or reread chapter blank, or give them an action point so that they can actually improve on whatever is going on. Moving back to the classwork here. We've just set things up with content and information. Moving down, we've structured, obviously this is just a sample, we structured these things. Now FYI, there's also additional materials that are hidden at this point because they don't need to know that information right now. They're just going to be focused right now on what's immediately important to them. So we start getting started. Jerry mentioned apps and making things interactive. We're actually using tools here to make things more app-like, and actually on the phone it works as well. So you can just collapse, you can hide things, you give them the structure. You have 3 steps, step 1, 2, and 3. They click on what they need to do and they get the information. We've also embedded materials such as videos, etc., so that, again, different learners, different styles, I want more video-based, etc., being able to meet them where they are while providing that guidance. Coming back up top. Moving into the syllabus. So everybody posts a syllabus in some way. You can also, by posting it, embed it so that it's visibly available. They don't have to actually download something, but you can allow them to easily download it as well if that's something important to them. And then using this just built-in features, they can maximize, they can zoom in, they can do what they need to do and see the syllabus right there very quickly and very easily. There are often certain things like grading that are again and again and again pointed out. You can also extract from your syllabus and put the most important things from your syllabus. It's the same information in the syllabus, but give it even more accessibility. So in this case, grading is a key item, so just lay it out. This is how the class is graded, this is my grade scale, and these are the key components and descriptions of those materials. Again, making it interactive. We also have materials to engage them. For instance, in preparation for the quiz, we can have them do just like old-fashioned flip cards, but it's just a Google spreadsheet or Google presentation. And so they can test their knowledge, and then they just keep going through, and they can see if they want to. You can place like see page blank. If they didn't know what they can do, they can come back to whatever the text materials is, or if there was an area like see chapter 3 in the site, and then they can relearn the video or what have you. You can drive them to whatever information you want. For each section or segment, we're also using the checklist tool so that they know exactly, it's like, what do I need to do? When's the homework due? All of these things. Week after week, they know exactly what their checklist is to be successful for this segment. And they can simply self-acknowledge for themselves if they want to. They could say, okay, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. They know where they last were, so that when they come back, oh yeah, now I need to complete this homework and do these other things. Just as their own personal markers. And again, embedding videos, etc. If you have to have them work on materials, whether it's face-to-face or online, you can provide the documents very easily for download. And then you can embed the assignments right then and there. Even in your assignments, you don't have to have bland instructions. You can use video, you can use imagery, etc. You know, they have to do 3 things to do this homework. They have to download, they have to do the work, and then they have to resubmit it. So, but using those visuals to like engage those learners who need those features and functions. So design, rethinking how you're presenting the information, reusing materials, and using some of the features such as checklist, gradebook, how to embed media, etc. So these are ways that we're doing as far as Hack 1 related to redesigning or rethinking the presentation of your class materials to get your learners started. So with that, I'm gonna.
Where are the instructions on how to redesign courses?
We will get to that at the end. So I could spend an hour with you going over that. So we sadly have 35 minutes.
No, if you told me where to look though on the site.
And we'll do that. So the purpose of this presentation is to model and be kind of provocative. I might want to do all that, some of that, just that, and the last one will be in action, how you can get that.
Okay, great.
So Alan told you about Hack 1, and that is about making the design easier to use, more app-like as the students and meet them where they're at. Now, the second hack involves communications with the students. You saw the sticky notes earlier where they're bombarding me with these emails at 2 a.m. and expecting an immediate response, and I just couldn't keep up with that, and I was stressing out. Did you know that the average person receives 125 emails a day, right? I have 100 students. Guess how many emails I receive? 0. Now, how did I do that? It didn't happen overnight. The challenge, you see, is that students want this feedback. They want text-based information. The solution is to give it to them, just not provided by you, unless you absolutely need to. And so this requires sort of behavioral change and massaging in the early days of the semester of how to communicate in the class, what kinds of questions to whom. And the hack was to use Google, specifically some of the tools in Google Suite that are freely available to everyone at Pepperdine, but being a Pepperdine. So let me model some of those things for you, what they look like in our class. Ellen showed you the class site, made the design easy to meet students where they're at with 2 buttons. Regarding the communications, we have the shared class notes, the class FAQ, and the class communication form permanently and prominently on the very first page. It comes up when they click classwork. And so what we do behaviorally say, hey, first of all, there's got to be rigor. You got to study on your own. Don't come crying to me for everything. Now, by the way, that's where students are. My students, some of them, literally call their mother every day. And I'm not joking. I've had deep conversations with them for things that you would expect an adult would take care of that you might have in your career. The horse is out of the barn. That's where they're at. So behaviorally, we say, hey, look, this is university. You need to spend at least 2 hours on homework for every hour that we have in class. Wrestle with the material before you shoot at the flare. But then, if you have a challenge, check the shared class notes. And what this is a Google Doc that's permanently posted here and that all the students in our section, in A section, have edit access to. And when they first get it in the beginning, it's blank, other than the title. And they are instructed to, and as part of their participation grade, is to take class notes while we're lecturing. Take class notes, synthesize the data, the lectures that we're giving, material we're learning. They can put in hyperlinks and colors and pictures and things. Some classes candidly do this better than others. But the idea is if you struggle with it and don't master it, maybe someone synthesized it very well here. If not, you can send up a flare here rather than to me. They can insert comments and communicate with each other. And the very first day we build community, ice breaking where they talk and laugh and touch each other, and then they come back and have that comfort to go, hey, I've struggled this for 2 hours, I don't get it. Or I've struggled 2 hours and you know what? Flynn didn't teach it very well. Here's a video that nails it perfectly. Go watch this. Don't do what I did. Don't go have the same pain point. And so we found that behaviorally, by always bringing up the class notes and telling them to flesh this out, they can often help themselves. 50 people helping each other rather than 50 people coming one-on-one to the professor all the time. A second tool then is, well, maybe they don't get that answer there. Maybe the students can't teach each other because you're the master and you're the one who has the answer. Well, the second Google tool that we have is a FAQ. Alan and I know we're going to get some of the same questions every semester, or new things come up in a given semester about a given case study or so forth. And so we publish an FAQ where all the students have view access. They can't edit this, we edit it. And in the early days, some of them are just functional things that, yes, we're covered in the syllabus, and yes, we're covered in class, but like, do I need to buy the textbook? We direct them to the FAQ. The answer is going to be there. If they're more detailed things, again, you can put in step-by-step instructions, images to go do exactly this. You don't need to contact me in order to execute the homework. And so we found that effective, and you'll find that as the weeks go by, there are fewer and fewer FAQs so they get behaviorally with the understanding how to wrestle with it, how to help each other, and how to check that. Now, nonetheless, they may want to contact you. And so this I found magical and is really what leads me to getting 0 emails. Because I tell them on the first day, if you have a question, do not email me. I will not respond. It's not a negative thing or a punitive thing, but rather I want to prioritize communications with you and have it in one place so I don't get lost your communication with me among the 125 emails I get in. And so we've created a class form via the Google Suite. It's very easy to do, and this is a simple one. Tell me your name. And Alan and I have determined that there are, I beg your pardon, Alan and I have determined that there are a series of things that people typically inquire about. I had trouble with the homework, trouble with the quiz, I missed class, can I have office hours, etc. So they choose a category or a general inquiry. And what that looks like from the professor's point of view is it goes into a table. Here's a timestamp. Here, these are bogus names and addresses. Iago Brezhnev, for example, is not a real person, but this is real data. And I have a column here in yellow of the type of inquiry. I had trouble with the homework and office hours, and I can filter that, shrink and look just at a given category if I'm interested. Because some of it is just informational. On this class, I just indicate, okay, I'm not going to respond to that. I'm not going to, that's great. Thank you for telling me. I can be prepared and review that if I'm checking absences later. But this, I can also filter it and look at just trouble with the homework. Maybe that's something I could really help them with. And so if I do that, only the homework questions are shown, and then I can analyze the question. So this first example is, I'm unable to download this product, and how do I get help, and here's a code. And if this happened on the very first day or week, I might respond to that. And by the way, I respond in courses, not via my email, but using a messaging tool in courses so that the question and response is cataloged with that class. Keeps my inbox and sent items clean. But this is relatively recently. I'm not going to respond to this because at this point, the behavioral change should be, did you check other people, did you wrestle with it, did you go to the FAQs? And what I will indicate in the date I responded is FAQ. I'm going to put it there. At the beginning of every class on the whiteboard, I have FAQs in my agenda first, and I go over them. And behaviorally, people understand, oh, I could have answered that question myself. And then any ones that I do need to respond to, I do. And I can check and filter, hey, is there any that I haven't responded to? It weeds out everything else and shows me just the 2 that I haven't responded to. So hack number 2 is using Google to improve communications and really helping them help themselves help each other, and minimize the need to communicate with them. If you're the only person in the world that can solve it for them, by all means, you prioritize that, spend time, and do communicate to them. But you'll find that behaviorally over time, you get fewer and fewer inquiries. And so, these are some of the changes. Alan talked about changing the design, make it easy, 2 buttons, app-like. I told you 3 kind of tricks about communicating to give them instant feedback, just not necessarily from you. How did this affect their evaluations? Alan is going to talk about that. Think for it now, if you need.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. So, the third hack is hopefully something that you may already be doing, but using a tool that Jerry mentioned as well. So, we're very fortunate. We made a number of changes, right? We stubbed our toes, we ran into some issues, and we started adjusting how we did things. So these are some examples of feedback. For example, direct student feedback. I like the class is organized, and we go over the material step by step. This organization goes in how we redesign the class site, so it's very structured, each chapter or each week, so it's very clear what they need to do when they need to do it. And also, the use of this in a face-to-face, the same kind of thing you could do in an online or blended by having, a slide during your presentation to have your just agenda, your outline. But marking that off, because a lot of times students are suddenly on their phone or on they're somewhere else. And so, where am I? Oh, we're on the next thing, and I need to do that. So those simple little things, such as using the whiteboard, are very helpful. And we've been blessed with several other very positive feedback and good numbers as well. So one of the mechanisms to, the eval is at the end of the course. So one of the ways to kind of get there is by doing a midterm evaluation, which for us is not really midterm, it's after the first assessment. So they've been able to struggle with some materials, and then right after the first assessment, where they've done well or not, give them basically a Google form that asks them what's working well, what's not working well, what have you learned the most, or what has been the most powerful thing that you've experienced, and then just open-ended feedback, right? So there are a lot of reasons for this. The most important for me is just the human need and relationship to be heard. We all need to be witnessed in life, right? And so by engaging our students, by asking simple questions, what's working for you personally, what's not working for you, and how can we engage, that gets the student into the learning process. And if you then bring that feedback directly back to them and say, I have heard and I'm making adjustments, or I have heard but maybe something else is going on, we actually discuss that. So actual feedback here from the eval form, but wait, hold on. This person says it's engaging. This other person says it's not engaging. So then having a discussion, figuring out what we need to do, because you're going to have that. Everybody's going to be a mix. People are going to be at different levels. Some people it's too fast, too slow, what have you. But this opens us to look at ourselves and determine, okay, do we need to change how we're doing things? Maybe we're too lecture heavy, and so we're going to move to small group, more examples, and we actually did this, and we had very positive changes. One of the examples, too, was like, it's a 2-hour class. Can you please give us a break? What an easy fix is that? So you just factor in a 10-minute break in the middle of the class or what have you, and then you listen to them, and then you're engaging them in that process. Here's another one that there's too much homework, not enough homework, but having a discussion about that. We're not going to change homework. We're not going to give them no homework, right? But there was a feedback, for example, that one of the assignments was actually repetitive in a way. So we nixed that. We killed that one, the repetitive one, and we changed it to another thing. We didn't change the amount of homework, but we changed the type or the delivery of homework. So we did listen and adjust. And doing that, at the end of the day, even if somebody doesn't perform well, if you've listened to them, if you've taken their feedback seriously, they're less likely to give you negative evals if you've been part of that process. So listening, adjusting as accordingly, and then being transparent as a group. Some people it works, some people it doesn't work. Let's have a discussion on these things, and then bringing it back. So that is, for us, how we have done our midterm eval to improve our end-of-term evals. So quickly in summary, we have 3 teaching hacks. The first hack is all about design. Rethinking the delivery and structure of your material so that students who need it to be more interactive, very easy to follow, more app-like can do so. Hack number 2 is actually rethinking communication and how those behaviors are that you expect from the students, how the students interact with you, and then also engaging in kind of like that crowdsourced student learning process, creating that community, which is huge in the online area, having all of those learners communicate with one another and know that they can obviously come to the professor, but they can also find solutions together. And the last is the eval, using a midterm eval, however you choose to use it, so that you can gauge where everybody is, make adjustments as necessary to your delivery, and then at the end of the day, have better evals at the very end of the course. So this is like an overview of things. In order to do all of these things, we are asking you to schedule a one-on-one consultation with our technology and learning group, because 35 minutes, we couldn't even touch like a piece of the design in 35 minutes. It takes a little bit of time, but within an hour you can learn any or all of these kinds of things that you want to get started with. And we can meet you where you are. And, like, what is your course? What are your objectives? What are the challenges you're facing? And then we can work with you to do that. So please schedule a one-on-one consultation with the technology and learning group, bit.ly.com/TechLearn1on1. So, Jerry and I would now like to open to any questions you may have.
So I have a question.
Yes.
And maybe this is a difference between grad and undergrad students.
There are
there's
differences.
going to be some dynamics there, right? But,
Sure.
So, for example, I think I get 125 emails by brunch.
Right.
And I, if it's not the dean, then I figure they're not as important as the rest of them. So I do have my students labeled, so when it comes up in my
Right.
email, it does identify them, and I can sort out by that. I do like the idea of funneling it all into, like you're saying, you respond through messages, right? Through, and I think that's terrific. I'm kind of curious if, and maybe others can speak to this, I can't see my executive MBA or even my evening MBA students saying, I need to contact Bob. I'm going to log into courses, go to my, click on this, click on that, click on that.
Mm-hmm. We have a bit.ly for the form as well, so that people
So
can
they go
bookmark
right to
it
the
and just
form.
write very quickly.
Yeah.
So those are different ways of doing it. Also, on the form itself, you can set it so that you can get an email, and what we do is it just says how many responses you have, right?
Yeah.
And then you get one summary of you got these responses. I have a filter
So
on
you
that.
can get a digest then, and
Exactly.
okay.
And then that for me helps me, and then I also have it labeled so that
But
I can
digest
bubble
would be
it up.
great, because when I see on my 51st pages that 12 of them are from students, I start to think, should I go to there first, or should I?
Yeah, right.
It becomes very distracting.
And some of those for us is we require them to just simply acknowledge that if they've done extra credit, and that's more of an undergrad kind of thing.
Right.
But then I don't need to worry about those things. Those are
Right.
just notifications versus actually inquiries.
Okay.
But that's something that we can definitely explore.
Easy. And it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And what do you do with the feedback? Do you recalibrate it all, or do you
Yeah,
respond openly,
yeah.
or one-on-one, or what do you do?
Oh no, I tweak my course because every class I have is on a different level. I know
Right.
that sounds weird, but even
Yeah.
though it's the same school,
Absolutely.
It's a different mix of students.
it's a different mix of students.
Absolutely.
And what I found too, especially in a larger class, as Alan indicated, you get contradictory feedback. It's too fast, too slow. It's too much homework. Homework is easy. I like more quizzes, believe it or not. But by sharing that publicly, it we are all the solipsistic. It's my life. This class is hard. But when you go and you look around, like, oh, a couple of people said it was easy. Well, maybe I need to change my behavior. It's very powerful that way.
Yeah, and sometimes with the fill in the blanks, you can tell because you know their writing style.
Right.
No, but that'll help you because you could see if, oh, is it just someone who complains all the time, or
Right.
is it someone who's a participant in class every day and they're giving you valuable feedback?
Cool.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you for sharing that. Awesome. Any other thoughts?
This isn't really a question,
Yeah.
but on the first section with the design,
Mhm.
the one thing I'm finding, and I teach marketing and advertising undergrads, is I feel like some of the students are lazy because they're different than we were.
Yeah,
You know,
sure,
we
they
were
are.
given a syllabus, and then we had to, meet the dates, hand in the assignments on time, and go to libraries
And maybe type the
research.
paper. Sure. Yeah.
They have Google, they have, everything
Yeah.
on courses.
Yeah.
And I sort of push them like, you need to figure this out.
Mhm.
Because once they go in the work world, when
Right.
they graduate, their bosses aren't going to be hand delivering them
Right.
everything.
So
So I
that's
love the
absolutely true.
design.
And
But-
Alan and I certainly are very strict, actually. We set the
Okay.
parameters up. In the early days, we're kind of gentle. But after a while, like you said, I don't respond.
Yeah.
It's like it's an FAQ. And I have one-on-ones. I'll spend as much time. I'll spend 2 hours after class talking to an individual student and getting them across. But it's like, you got to do the work. And if you don't, it's all there. I can't make it easier for you. But you got to do the work, absolutely.
Right. No, but we have seen that change as far as behavioral related to. I mean, it varies, but yeah, students simply expect a lot to be done for them versus
The other thing is,
Versus
it's a new era. The horse is out of the barn. I don't know if you saw, but LSU has a lazy river where they get in inner tubes on campus, and the water just pushes them along. I mean, we're also just facing the reality. This is what people do. They click 2,000 times a day. We got to meet them somewhere at that. It's still a university. You'll fail if you don't do the work. But that's what struck me, is that I find that students are far more emotional too. I've had people break down into tears, honestly, and at the assessments. But this semester, I had someone on the second day of class, and that's the reality. There are people there's a lot of stressors in their lives. So what can we do?
Jerry, one thing I've started doing too is I actually, in the 411 form that I send out at the beginning of the class, I ask for their cell number. I also ask for their cell phone provider. And then I set up my emails, and they had with the cell phone at their, there's a provider thing, and then so it's hard to send a group email to 30 people.
Yeah.
I mean a group text to 30
Yeah.
people, but you can set it up now where you put in an email, you can put 30 of these in an email, and then you can write whatever you want, not too long, because they're going to get it as a text.
So you blast
Right.
text.
And what I found is that they like that, because then I'm not sending them emails with 9 paragraphs. I'm sending them a quick email and say, go to this link and
Right.
read X.
That's awesome.
That's a fantastic
And
way.
it actually has helped a lot, because then they'll text me back, and what I've learned is if they have to text, I don't get 5-paragraph emails. I get, Bob, I'm having a problem with X.
I like
Right.
that.
And I can kind of quickly address that.
We got to steal that.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the purpose of this conference, is sharing good practice.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it actually works pretty well. There's always some
I like it. You're meeting them where they're at, the text based and quick.
Cool.
Well, with that, folks, it's 10:25. If you have further questions, please stay after. But thank you very, very much for joining us, and thank you.